And you're on.
All right, here we're back. Late night from Willowdale. It's actually late afternoon. From Willowdale. We're in the beautiful Goulding Park in the Young Steeles area. We haven't done a video in a while. It's a beautiful summer day. We had a break from the heat today. It's a beautiful summer day in July, so it's late afternoon from Willowdale. But yes, technically late night from Willowdale. Anyways, today we haven't done it in a while, so today we just wanted to talk a bit about what's going on in the last 6 weeks or so with all the protests against racism and Black Lives Matter, and of course it all started with the killing of George Floyd in Minneapolis at the end of May. But I'm not going to get into all of that, but I wanted to talk more about the whole issue of tearing down monuments and renaming schools and all of that. Is everything good?
Everything's fine.
Everything's good. So yeah, when Trump gave his speech at Mount Rushmore the day before July 4th, the day before Independence Day, a lot of people said it was dark and nasty. It was sort of a repeat of his American Carnage speech, which which was his inaugural address. But you know what? I think some of what Trump said, and I'm wearing my Trump t-shirt because I'm trying to make a point. I think some of what Trump said is true. There is definitely some left-wing fascism out there. There's definitely an intolerance of any dissent from left-wing dogma. And people have lost their job, professors have lost their jobs, people have removed from museum boards, people have lost their volunteer positions, all because they've been critical, I guess, somewhat of what's been going on, or critical of the Black Lives Matter movement. There's a real suppression of dissent. And the left is often been guilty of this. They don't like certain speakers coming to their schools because of a variety of reasons. I remember in Toronto they were trying to get Steve Bannon not to speak at something. And I find this stuff abhorrent. So Trump is right. There is definitely a left-wing fascism out there, and it's very intolerant. And so this brings me to what I want to talk about, because I'm a big fan of preserving history, even if it's nasty history. So there's been a big debate over getting rid of Confederate monuments and all of that. And I'm going to say I don't agree with that. I think that's, to me, is erasing history. That is canceled. It's not so much cultural, it's historical. I don't believe in canceling history, and that's erasing history. The Civil War is a fact of life. The Confederacy represented slavery, and that's a fact of life. And there are monuments to Confederate soldiers and Robert E. Lee and Stonewall Jackson and all of that. And I know in this day and age, a lot of people find those monuments abhorrent because they represent the Confederacy, which represented slavery. But I don't think tearing them down is a good idea. I think that, and I want to read the quote here. I think it's better to contextualize history than excise. It's better to contextualize history than to excise it. It was from Roger Cohen in the New York Times. He says cancel culture is a mimical, what they're calling cancel culture. Cancel culture is a mimical to free speech. And I would agree with that. So I contextualize history. So what I think should be done to a lot of this, and I'm going to go into this, is contextualizing it. So you don't tear down all the monuments. You put plaques up. You educate people. Atlanta's actually been doing a good job at this, about the time and place, why these monuments were put up, what they represent, and you say, oh yeah, these Confederate soldiers. They believed in their cause, but they represented the continuance of slavery. They represented the continuance of slavery. They were put up in this time, but it gives people a context. And I do think that some of these monuments are works of art, and tearing them down, I think, is an attack on art. But yes, they represent the Confederate. The Confederate monuments all around the U.S. represent slavery, no question. But put plaques up. You can educate around a monument. They've done, like I said, they've done this in Atlanta. And you can put disclaimers up. But I don't think tearing down all of this is a good idea, because that's erasing history. And so I'm going to plead, when you and I were at the Rembrandt exhibit at the ROM last year, the Royal Ontario Museum, it was a great exposition of Dutch art, but they contextualized it. They said the Dutch made a lot of money on slavery, and that's why there's all this great art, but it sort of was an outcome of the Dutch economy that was, the Dutch economy made a lot of money on slavery. And they have the same thing in the AGO, the Dutch Gallery, at the Art Gallery of Ontario. They contextualized it. They said, they put, the Dutch made a lot of money on slavery. So when you see the art, that a lot of it it's great art, but it, comes from a period of savagery and of nastiness, and the Dutch, made a lot of money on slavery. But people know that, it's there. It's in that you see this art, but don't forget that.
But for some people, that's not enough, right?
Yes, right. For some people, it's not enough. But what? We're going to get rid of Rembrandt and Vermeer and all these great Dutch painters. We're not going to get to see their paint because they were a product of a Dutch economy that depended on slavery. I mean, that's silly. I just find that's religious zealotry, and I don't believe in tearing down. I don't believe in getting rid of this art. I don't believe in tearing down monuments, and I certainly don't believe in tearing down ruins. I bought this great book the other day, Atlas of Vanishing Places. It's a great book, you should pick it up. It's all about the lost worlds as they were and as they are today. It's about, all the old great ruins, the old lost cities, and of course it's about obviously lost geography, lakes that don't exist anymore. But that's what I was thinking of when I saw this book. This is what's happening. If it was up to the left and some of these Black Lives Matter supporters, it would be the Atlas of Vanishing Places. All these places would disappear. Think about it. The Colosseum in Rome would be gone. All these Roman ruins would be gone, because the Romans weren't very
Colosseum.
nice.
I mean,
yeah, get rid of the Colosseum in Rome. Hey, the Romans weren't very nice. They did nasty things in the Colosseum, right?
Right.
They fed people to lions, and so let's get rid of the Colosseum.
Right.
Let's get rid of the Parthenon. Let's get rid of the Acropolis, because the Greeks weren't that nice either.
Mm-hmm.
The ancient Greeks weren't that nice. Let's get rid of Persepolis, because Darius wasn't as a Persian king, wasn't that great either. Let's get rid of the pyramids. They were built by, they were
slave owners, basically.
Slaves, basically. There was no union wages paid when they built the pyramids.
Yeah, compared to today, it's pretty bad.
So yeah, exactly. Let's the Taj Mahal. I mean, the classic example. The people that built the people that built the Taj Mahal weren't treated very well. So let's get rid of the Taj Mahal. Let's it could go on and on and on. Let's get rid of Angkor Wat. Let's get rid of let's get rid of all the Mayan ruins, because the Mayans weren't very pleasant. They weren't very nice either. Human sacrifice. They were brilliant in many ways, but they did a lot of nasty stuff. Let's get rid of that. Where does it end? Where does it end?
Mm-hmm. And as of now, nobody's drawing a clear line, right?
Right. No one's drawing a clear line, and that's why what I would say, what I call the left-wing Taliban. The leftist Taliban has to be stopped. I mean, it's because that's what they are. The Taliban was destroying all these Buddhist statues in Afghanistan. It's disgusting. And ISIS destroying the Roman ruins of Palmyra in Syria, some of the greatest Roman ruins in Palmyra in Syria. The leftists, that's what they're sort of almost advocating. The Black Lives Matter movement and the left is, we have to get rid of everything, all the nastiness that happened in the world. And you know what? You gotta sit back and think, what? Because there are no perfect people. Okay, people did nasty things. I know in a couple of years ago in Toronto, they were talking about changing the name of Ryerson because Egerton Ryerson wasn't the greatest person. There's King Edward I think it's King Edward VII, beautiful statue at the North Lawn at Queen's Park, a gift from India to Canada. I'm sure he wasn't the nicest person either, but we certainly don't want to get rid of that beautiful statue.
What about the Eiffel Tower, the City of Romance, right? Like that was built for an exposition that was for clearly colonialist France. Like, I mean,
well, there you go. Let's take down the Eiffel Tower too.
Right.
Hey, while we're at it, right? While we're erasing history,
right?
You know what I mean? So you could go on and on and on. I could give you thousands of examples, but it's political correctness gone wild. It's sort of religious zealotry gone crazy in the name of political correctness, in the name of fighting racial injustice. But it's nuts. I think it's important to contextualize history and put it in perspective when these monuments and when the things were built, and also say, the people who built these things weren't the sweetest, nicest people on the planet Earth. So people have gone a bit nuts on this, and talked about getting rid of the Jefferson Memorial or the Washington Monument. Come on. I know that's not going to happen, but it's just a thought of. Everyone knows Washington and Jefferson were slave owners. It's a given, and neither were perfect human beings. But they're not honored for that. They're honored for basically establishing the American Republic. Churchill, right? Churchill was a nasty person. He was a racist. Many people thought of him as a war criminal. I mean, think of the fire bombings of Dresden and such during the Second World War. But Churchill's remembered for leading the Allies in victory over the Nazis. Are we going to get rid of everything named after Churchill? I sit in Winston Churchill Park at St. Clair's Spadina every night. Come on, let's get real. The classic example is Auschwitz. I've been to Auschwitz. After the Second World War, the Allies and many others decided to keep the concentration camps so people could see the horrors of the Nazis and the horrors of genocide, and now Auschwitz is a memorial commemorating genocide and commemorating the horrors of the Nazis, and it's a pilgrimage site for many people to go and remember fascism, to remember the horrors of fascism and the horrors of nationalism and the final solution. And I've been to Auschwitz, and it's a very sobering place. And it's important that that we kept Auschwitz and Dachau and some of these concentration camps around, just to remember history and what happened and the horrors of what the Nazis did in the Second World War. So Auschwitz is a perfect example. We shouldn't be tearing. No, I mean, it's a bit to compare a Confederate statue in Auschwitz, so it's a bit of a stretch, but we shouldn't be tearing down history, and I'm glad they preserved these concentration camps so people can see the horrors of what the Nazis did. So yeah, I didn't want to make this a long video, and I just wanted I had some notes here, but yeah, so I think that's, again, I've been bringing these props. The Atlas of the Roman world, Atlas of vanishing places. I believe in preserving ruins, and you can contextualize history, but let's not destroy it. I love climbing up the Roman aqueduct at Caesarea, northern Israel. I love going to see a Mayan temple at what I did in Tulum a number of years ago. So we need to keep this stuff around. Like I said, a lot of the folks that built these places weren't nice, but let's keep it around. And I also don't believe that we should be banning speakers from universities because I think we should let people speak. I remember a number of years ago, a friend of mine got a ticket to go see former U.S. Vice President Dick Cheney, and he didn't want to go because Dick Cheney is a war criminal. I thought, give me the time, I'll go. I'd like to hear what Dick Cheney has to say. Yeah, he's a war criminal, I know that, but hey, when do you ever get to hear a war criminal speak?
I want to hear somebody speak when they're against me, you know.
I want to hear what he had to say. He's a historical figure, Dick Cheney.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, historical in the sense that he's been around since the Nixon era. He held many prominent positions. But I kind of like to hear these people speak. I bought John Bolton's book in the room where it happened. If I got a ticket to hear John Bolton speak, I'd go hear him speak. I know some universities probably wouldn't want John Bolton to speak because he was the architect of the Iraq. He was very supportive of the Iraq War, worked in the Bush administration. But he's an intellectual. I still want to hear what he has to say. His book is very interesting. Everyone's read the excerpts. I still would want to know what he has to say. I don't like this whole censorship stuff that goes on the left, and it's been going on in universities. I think it's important. Let people speak, you know. And I think I'm checking my notes here because, yeah, I do. I'm going to end on I think some of the hypocrisy that's come up in the last 6 weeks with the BLM movement and stuff. It's definitely what I thought, and as Clete, as you said, it was sort of like a Monty Python meets Fawlty Towers moment when you have these demonstrations all around the world in support of George Floyd in some of the most repressive countries. And I remember, I think it was Susan Rice, former National Security Advisor. No, it was Condoleezza Rice, a former secretary. She held a number of positions under Bush, W. Bush. She said, "This is ridiculous. Like, these people, don't they have their own domestic issues to worry about? And they're having all these copycat demonstrations around the world about George Floyd." And there's a couple of points to be made here. I'm going to read something too. I'll end on the Lance Morrow thing. American hegemony, American power might be on decline, but the American spectacle, this is from someone in the Financial Times who wrote this, the American spectacle continues. American culture and black culture is very powerful. It's seen all around the world. The U.S. cultural machine is very powerful. So people all around the world see American news, and they see these protests, and they see the videos of George Floyd being killed. And it just spreads. But it's a lot of these copycat demonstrations are just hilarious because they're just a product of American culture, you know, the American spectacle. And some of these, there are demonstrations in Syria. There are places, the most repressive, nutty places in the world. There are demonstrations protesting the death of George Floyd. They're protesting the Congo. It was just bizarre, right? Like, there are protests in India. These countries have their own problems, their own racial divides, their own hatreds, and yet, because it's a big American spectacle, they all copycat it, and it all becomes a bit much. As you say, Monty Python meets Fawlty Towers, and I found this whole, there are racisms everywhere, right? And I do find that the Black Lives Matter movement, everyone jumps on the bandwagon and puts their knee down and all that. I do find that a bit much because, it's trendy and it gets a lot of media, and people can go to their cocktail parties or their cottage in Muskoka and say, "Hey, I went to the demo today," and all that. But yeah, I was thinking, where's the Uyghur? Where are the Uyghur lives matter, or the Rohingya lives matter, or the Oromo lives matter, or the Uyghurs are in concentration camps in northwest China. Where are the big protests for the Uyghurs? Uyghurs' lives matter. Rohingya lives matter. Oromo lives matter. You could go on and on and on, right? About different groups of people in the world that are oppressed and treated like dirt. And no one cares about them. The Palestinians, where's the Palestinians' lives matter? Where all the protests and, the Palestinians have been subjugated for decades. Where's the Palestinians' lives matter? So you know what I mean. I think you should all take this stuff in context. Yes, there's still lots of racial injustice in the world, and I could go on and on. I just wanted to say, but don't fight for racial equality and all that, but don't destroy history. Don't erase history, tear down monuments or ruins or all that. Because, you know, that's what ISIS and the Taliban does, and we don't want that. So let me just, Lance Moore, writing in the Wall Street Journal, a very thoughtful guy. He's writing about an honest conversation about race. He says, the most tragic impediment to an honest conversation about race in America is fear, an entirely realistic fear of being slain by the cancel culture. This fear to speak is a civic catastrophe and an affront to the Constitution. It induces silent rage in the silenced. It's impossible to exaggerate the corrupting effect that the terror of being called a racist, even a whiff of the toxin, the slightest hint, the ghost of an imputation, has on the freedom of discussion and the honest workings of the American public mind. He says, racism in America is no longer totalitarian, as it once was in the South. The cancel culture is the new totalitarianism, a compound of McCarthyism, the Inquisition, the Cultural Revolution, the Taliban, and what has become a lethal and systematic ignorance of history, almost a hatred of it. All that wild, unearned certainty, that year zero zealotry, discredits those who associate themselves with the cause and makes a mockery of their sweet intentions. Much of the white woke rage is radiant with mere self-importance. I thought that says it all. So I'm going to end on that. There's probably other things I might want to say, but I think a good movie to watch about putting a lot of this in is Watch Network from 1976. That was a great movie, and that sort of encapsulates some of the silliness that's going on today. Watch Network from 1976. A great movie. Anyways, I think that's pretty much what I wanted to say, and I do think that once again, let's not vanish more places on the earth, and let's keep the Roman ruins. And yeah, this is a great book, Atlas of Vanishing Places. Let's not vanish more of them. And John Bolton speaks at university. Let him speak. He's a pretty smart guy. I don't agree with him. He's a nasty. I don't agree with him. I think he's a warmonger, but I think he's a smart guy. You should hear him speak. His book is very interesting. On that note, I think pretty much it from Goulding Park on a beautiful July summer day. And anything else, Cleve, that we think?
I think that's pretty much it.
I think I pretty much covered it.
Yeah, that covers everything.
The point of this video is, when you fight for injustice, don't destroy monuments and don't destroy history. And that's it.
Okay.